Hello and welcome to this episode of the AEC Business Podcast. My name is Aarni Heiskanen and my guest is Keith McFarlane, CTO at Globality. And we will discuss how Agentic AI is transforming the sourcing process. Keith, thanks for joining us.
I'm really glad to be on the podcast, Aarni. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, let's start with I already said that you are the CTO, but maybe you could say a few words about yourself, and then and then continue with what is Globality and so on.
Certainly, Aarni. I'll do a very quick summary. Not delving too far into the past, but I come from really an engineering background. I spent quite a bit of time in telecom companies doing CRM. I spent 4+ years working at Oracle, working with what was known as the Oracle Service Cloud, and I came on board Globality, hearing from Joel Hyatt and Leor Delgo about their vision for transforming procurement, and as hearing those words, someone might not immediately be excited, but I can tell you, it's an extremely exciting venture. It's an extremely exciting world. If you can imagine how many trillions of dollars flow from company to company in the world, and all through these procurement organizations that are largely overburdened with the work they need to do. It's an exciting time to have joined Globality. So I joined as the CTO. I've spent the last 5 years now working with my team to develop this agent that we've built and to improve procurement worldwide, and that's what we're doing.
Well, that sounds like a really timely thing to do right now. Especially everybody's talking about AI, but you have been doing that for a while, so it's not something that you just discovered.
It's true. It's true.
Well, everybody's said that this year would be the year of AI agent, but I'm not sure about that. But could you explain what AI agents are and what it means in simple terms, and how does it differ from traditional technologies?
Absolutely. It's a really important set of distinctions, Aarni. First off, there are many ways that these technologies are discussed in marketing circles, and no offense to my friend Andy at Globality, who's a brilliant marketer. He comes up with wonderful terms for all these things. This term agentic, for example, is it a real word? Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I can tell you the base technologies behind words like this are real. Stretching back to the 60s, and I've talked about this on in other forums. You have look up sometime. There's a project called Shaky the Robot, and Shaky the Robot was an agent robot built in the 60s to demonstrate the core notion behind agents. And the core notion behind agents is in the name. It's agency. It's, can this entity, can this unit of software make choices absent necessarily immediate human intervention? Can I empower this bit of software to, instead of myself, standing in for me, to make smart choices about the things that ought to be done? Of course, with human guidance, of course, with human intercedence where needed, but it's that core notion of agency that separates the software agent from, say, some of the base technologies. This is where people get confused. Large language models, generative AI, all these are enabling technologies. You sit in front of ChatGPT and have a conversation. That's not an agent interaction. That's a chatbot interaction. That's an enhanced chatbot interaction. That's just, some, stochastically generated text coming from the other side, and it's useful, and it can be, highly, effective in making certain processes better. But now, layer on top of that large language model or any other AI technology, the ability to make some decisions in a framework that is safe, right? So layer on top of it, for example, in our case, a decade of understanding this industry from an AI perspective. The many hours, days, weeks, months, years worth of effort that have gone into building up our taxonomy. All of that intelligence in that taxonomy, our understanding of long form text, bring all of that to the table. Our understanding of the procurement process across multiple industries. Now layer that on top of this new winning technology, large language models, and suddenly you've got a recipe for something that really can change an industry, that really can save you money and provide value. So I guess the distinction I draw between the technologies that have emerged, these large language models, everything else we're doing with AI, and this agentic world is that fundamental application intelligence that you layer on top and get that really powerful combination.
Yeah, that's a good distinction to make, that when everybody's using chatbots nowadays, so they can create text and images and videos. They are like generative bots, but they actually, at least at the moment, they cannot do much, let's say, work that they cannot really help me with my everyday work. So and do things like that. So that's a good way to distinguish between these technologies.
Aarni, I guess I having seen, I'm sure you're well aware of the term AI slop. So having seen, an incredible amount of slop emerging on forums like LinkedIn and other sorts of social networks, it makes it that much more important to be able to layer the right kind of guidance and testing and validation on top of what these large language models and more to the point, this agentic AI produces. You have to have a way to verify the outputs are true to form.
But I guess that we can still agree on that this is transformational technology anyway.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah. So let's discuss construction specifically. You can maybe you can walk us through a typical usage scenario in a construction supply chain context.
Certainly. And, I've actually had a couple of conversations with people who are far more expert in construction than I am. I will put that in front of you. One of the more interesting projects that has come our way is an office retrofit for post-pandemic. So, everyone was out of the offices during the pandemic. Nobody was touching them. Everyone had thoughts as to how they might do offices better after the pandemic. Now, have they been successful? Who knows? But what is true about a project like that? Let's say I'm in this case a telecom company that needs to retrofit any number of offices. 50, 100 more offices. I want to start off with, in this case, a master services agreement that nails down the pricing of many different items. Everything from rebar to concrete to architectural and design services to electricians. There are so many things. This is the thing about construction projects. We have a number of different categories we cover, right? Many categories we cover. Construction brings some of the most complex supply arrangements to the table. Thousands of line items in pricing sheets. And what we were able to do in this case for this telecom company and this retrofit is start with a template of the pricing that would come along with the master services agreement, set up a panel of 30 plus potential contractors, contract managers, GCs, whatever you want to call them, that would apply to any given instance of these retrofits, because you're going to have a retrofit that's maybe requires more architectural work. You'll have a retrofit that's really just a modernization of the electrical infrastructure. who knows what you need per retrofit? You're going to need perhaps a different contractor for each. So we're able to capture the pricing within the MSA, make it available on the platform, and ensure that when these contractors came to the table, when they were selected via our intelligent process, that any pricing that they brought forward was in alignment with the MSA. And then we could take a look, apples to apples comparison, between the proposals coming from these suppliers for each one of these retrofits. Are we in the right neighborhood in terms of the work that is going to be done, in terms of the price that's being recommended? Can I negotiate a better price based on some of the autonomous negotiation features at each one of these price points for all the items in the MSA for the overall cost of the project? So that's just one example of how getting something like Glow involved in the process not only provides this structure, right? Provides, the pricing sheets and the templates and this analysis behind the scenes, but can also take everything about those projects, every proposal coming to the table from these contractors, and provide you not just that side-by-side comparison, but also provide, and this is the agentic part, both provide the upfront Q&A that is required with regard to a project like this, getting into the complexities, and then providing negotiation advice. You can press on this material. You can, because of the pricing coming in from multiple vendors, you can align this price with everyone else and still get a fair deal. It's amazing when you apply that agentic AI backplane to a project like this, the kind of savings you can achieve. And other kinds of projects, right? I mean, within construction, every project is going to turn into a very large outlay of different teams and people. What we find is that with Globality, whether or not you're just going to source to a general contractor, or you're going to source yourself, and we've had customers do this, to multiple entities, kind of get the subcontractor relationships set up yourself and manage the project on your own. We've got the structures for that. So, both on the AI side and just generally speaking, how the process runs, you get efficiencies.
Okay. One thing you mentioned, Glow, as a name.
Yes.
So Glow is is it the agent or what is Glow actually? It's a platform.
That's right. That's the personification of our agent, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there are, and I'll mention this. There are many ways to think of agentic AI, right? You can think of it as sort of this single personification. You can think of it as, hey, I've got an agent for every job. What we like to think in terms of, and the way we approach this problem is, we have one highly capable, consistent agent presence that handles all the jobs. Now, behind the scenes, maybe it does a little, subcontractor, right? Maybe it will push a job off to an independent agent to execute. But within our application, Glow is the agent that you will interact with at every part of the journey. And that's from initial intake all the way through to, the proposal analysis and finally award.
Well, I'm just writing or preparing a presentation on data in construction, and one of the things that we know is that construction involves incomplete supplier data and all sorts of data that is not. I don't know how reliable it is always, but how do you deal with unreliable information when making sourcing decisions?
Yeah, that's a very important point, because, I think everyone's getting used to this now. If you provide unreliable information to a large language model, you're very likely to get unreliable information out. In our case, we've done enough work to ground every discussion, every choice, every bit of feedback coming from the agents with real world information, right? So you mentioned supplier data. One thing that we do with our AI is we will extract real world information from the internet, from case studies, from the actual goings on the platform within a given customer's universe, to ground any discussion we're having with a customer, Glow talking to a customer, in truth, right? In those facts. So what we find is that the more we can infuse the platform with real facts about suppliers, with real facts about pricing, for example, whether it's pricing from templates provided by the customer or pricing from an API somewhere, think of benchmarking companies, etc. Glow is much smarter. And we've also got sufficient guardrails in place to ensure that Glow's not just going to make things up out of thin air. This is that hallucination effect you hear about a lot. It takes a lot of work, a lot of thinking, and the right expertise to ensure that in cases where information isn't enough, the agent just comes back and says, I don't know enough. I don't have the information to provide this. And you'd rather have that than have it just make something up out of thin air, which, I think, unfortunately, you'll see in other products.
Yeah. Very good point. At least here in Europe, sustainability is a critical viewpoint for procurement. How do you help companies verify and act on environmental or ESG metrics?
Well, within the product, we've got, and this is something we can do with integrations with various suppliers. But within the product, we do surface ESG metrics. Whether or not there's ESG compliance with a given standard. Again, there are APIs out there in the world that allow us to track and pull in this information for a supplier database. We find that certain customers, this is an extremely important thing. Certain customers, they prefer not to think about it. I find it important personally, but of course we have to reflect the needs of our customers within each of these circumstances. So it's something where we can represent it in the product, and we can make choices if the customer wants, based on ranking choices of suppliers based on the fact that ESG compliance exists. As a matter of fact, you can filter out suppliers that don't comply if that's something that's important to you.
Okay, yeah. Certainly, now you have been around for some time, so certainly you have seen outcomes from the processes that use Glow. How would you compare those with the manual process?
Yeah, it's not a fair fight, Aarni. Manual processes, we've seen from processes that take 10 days come down to 1 day. We've seen processes that have taken 30 days come down to 2 days. We've seen a complete RFP exercise completed within 2 hours. This is, if there's any magic to this, that's the magic, is shaving time off of the exercises that must typically be executed by the procurement professional. And this is where this is where the efficiency comes from, right? Is I shave all that time off, and now I can dig deeper into my ever increasing backlog of sourcing events that might not ever have got a real look, that might have just proceeded with someone's best guess. In this case, we're able to really increase the surface area that procurement teams can attack around all of these events that really, really need a better look. So the efficiency gains are one of the biggest things about Globality, right? But the insights on pricing, are where much of the value comes from in the end. For the CFO, the insights on, can I push this negotiation a little further? Did I properly compete this project? Do I see prices coming down over time? Did an automated negotiation perhaps get me to a better result than I might have? And this is where we see 20% or more savings across the board.
Wow, yeah, that sounds very promising. One thing that is always something that companies think about is, how do I take this new technology or solution into use, and what's required from a company who would start using Glow, and how long is the onboarding phase typically?
Typically, onboarding, I mean, first of all, you can use Globality straight out of the gate, without changes. We can enable it for any given customer. We do this for lab exercises with the customers. Just turn it on and start using it. Now, that relies, of course, on our own database of suppliers and on our own definition of taxonomy, commodity codes, etc. What we'll typically want to do with a customer when we're bringing them up to speed is spend, a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe less, maybe a little more, depending on complexity, to get the basics of their data onto the system. So their supplier list, their supplier master data, import all of the suppliers that make the most sense in their world, augmenting, of course, with our suppliers if that's what they want to do. Again, commodity codes, all of the various supplies and the ways in which we would identify them in their universe in an SOW. Cost centers. There are a number of key data items that make a lot of sense to bring into the platform to make things a lot smoother for the end users. Of course, again, not a requirement for starting, but the more data we have on the platform, the richer the experience and the faster the tender process goes. Now, after that, getting deeper into integrations, let's say about a month and a half out, we can do everything from integrate with an intake system. If for example, there are intake systems like Oro Labs that execute, or ServiceNow that execute something like a workflow on the front with their agents and can hand off to our API. We can automatically generate purchase requests, purchase orders via integrations to Coupa, to SAP Ariba. Any other number of integrations are possible through our integration framework. So it's a matter of degrees, right? In the very beginning, you can start right away with really simple tenders. You can get some of the most important information onto the platform, supplier lists and, commodity codes, et cetera. And suddenly things are much smoother. And then you get to that next layer. You get to true integration between some of the back-end systems. And suddenly, you're really, as they say, off to the races.
Okay. So you can start off with maybe data that isn't exactly perfect or in a structured format.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Very good. Well, for the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, I know this is really difficult to predict what's going to happen. But what do you see as the single biggest disruption in construction supply chains, and how are you preparing for it?
Single biggest disruption in construction supply chains. Well, that's a really big question, especially given the 5 to 10 years. I often say in forums like this that predicting 5 years is near impossible now. Predicting 1 year is difficult, but somehow doable. 1 to 3 years or so, I think we can project. I think, and if I'm being specific about, procurement around construction, I think what you're going to see more and more is these agents applied to, everything from, sort of massaging that data interface between the vendors and a system like ours, so that everyone is able to very quickly, very easily push their notion of pricing for specific items and have all of the items be very consistent and surfaced by AI in such a way that it's not as difficult to match one for one between different systems. So integration, I think, is going to get a lot easier over time. I think where you'll see a real push is around autonomous negotiation. This is an area, there are a couple of contenders in this space, especially in and around procurement. It's an area that we are ourselves looking very closely at. And we look to do something in this space, particularly around strategic negotiation. Imagine you've got these LLMs. Again, we've discussed how you really have to put a lot of wrapping around them to make them useful. But you've got LLMs that are imbued with just decades, centuries of negotiation experience, negotiation tactics, actual negotiation events, pricing. It's not information that you want to trust raw, of course, because that's where hallucinations come from. But given all that background, what you have in your hands is an expert strategic and tactical negotiator if you apply it right. So what you're going to see is more and more of that background that's built into these LLMs applied properly to the negotiation problem. And you're going to see better and better results over time. And I think you'll see that, within the next year and a half, you'll see much more autonomous negotiation between suppliers and customers surfacing.
Okay, yeah, maybe that was an impossible question to begin with, but do you see that maybe if the vendors are also they will also implement agentic AI, and maybe the agents will be doing these negotiations?
Oh, I'm sure of it. I mean, there are already protocols like MCP and that's Model Context Protocol and agent-to-agent interfaces that portend this shift, right? Of, agents talking to humans and now agents talking to agents, and I think there will be marketplaces for agents that are really, really good at this, and understand how to negotiate under certain circumstances or in certain platforms. There will be a structure that evolves around that. And I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Well, Keith, this has been really exciting, and maybe finally, how can our audience find out more about Glow and Globality?
I would suggest just doing the basics, going to www.globality.com. Certainly if they have an interest, they can reach out, to me through you or just, shoot me an email. I mean, I'd be fine with publishing that with your help.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast and visit aec-business.com, the award-winning blog, for more news and stories.